Hello! Today, we will solve a question from the TOEFL reading section, focusing on the read an academic passage question type. We will practice identifying the main idea, tracking key details, understanding cause-effect relationships, and noticing repeated concepts, so we can choose the most accurate answer based strictly on the passage. Ready to dive deep into how color shapes our world and master the TOEFL reading section at the same time? Let's get started. If you're finding this lesson helpful, be sure to subscribe to my TOEFL for more tips and practice to help you succeed on your exam. The Psychology of Color in Marketing. This title tells us exactly what the passage will be about. Let's break it down. First, we have psychology, which is the study of the mind and behavior. Then we have color, which is self-explanatory. And finally, marketing, which is the business of promoting and selling products or services. So the title tells us the passage will explore how the study of the mind, specifically related to color, is used in the business world to sell things. This is our big clue to look for connections between colors, emotions, and business strategies. The use of color in marketing is a carefully considered strategy based on the psychological impact colors have on human emotion and behavior. This first sentence sets the stage perfectly. It tells us that using color in marketing isn't random. It's a carefully considered strategy. And what is this strategy based on? The psychological impact that colors have on our emotion and behavior. This sentence is the main idea of the entire passage in a nutshell. It introduces the core concepts: color, marketing, and psychology. Companies invest heavily in selecting colors for their logos, products, and advertising campaigns, understanding that color can influence consumer perceptions and purchasing decisions. This sentence gives us the why. Why is this a big deal? Because companies invest heavily in it. They spend a lot of money on choosing colors, and the reason is that color can influence consumer perceptions and purchasing decisions. This confirms the main idea. Color is a tool used to affect how customers think and what they decide to buy. It directly connects color to business results. This field, known as color psychology, suggests that specific colors can evoke predictable feelings, although these responses can be shaped by personal experience and cultural background. Here we get the official name for this field: color psychology. It suggests that colors can evoke predictable feelings, meaning they can bring about certain emotions in a way we can expect. But there's a very important exception. The sentence adds that these responses can be shaped by personal experience and cultural background. This is a key detail. It tells us that the effect of color isn't universal. It can change depending on who you are and where you're from. For example, in many Western cultures, the color red is often associated with energy, passion, and urgency. This sentence starts with "for example," which is a huge signpost for us. It means the author is about to give a specific case to support the previous idea. It specifies Western cultures, reinforcing the point about cultural background. The example is about the color red, which is linked to feelings like energy, passion, and urgency. This is why it is frequently used for clearance sales or to draw attention to important calls to action. And here's the practical application of that example. The word why shows a cause and effect relationship. Because red means urgency, it's used for clearance sales and calls to action, like a buy now button. This connects the psychological feeling to a specific marketing strategy. In contrast, blue is commonly linked to feelings of trust, security, and stability, making it a popular choice for banks, insurance companies, and technology firms aiming to project reliability. The phrase, "in contrast," signals a shift to a different example. Now we're talking about blue. What feelings does blue evoke? Trust, security, and stability. And which businesses want to project these feelings? The passage tells us banks, insurance companies, and technology firms. Again, we see a direct link between a color, the emotion it creates, and the type of business that uses it. Similarly, green often signifies health, nature, and tranquility, so it is widely used for organic products and environmental brands. The word similarly introduces another supporting example. This time, it's about the color green. It signifies health, nature, and tranquility. Therefore, the passage says it's used for organic products and environmental brands. This pattern of color emotion brand is now very clear. The application of color psychology extends beyond branding and advertising. This is the topic sentence of the third paragraph. It tells us we are moving on to a new point. The key phrase here is extends beyond. This means color psychology is used in more places than just logos and ads, which were discussed in the previous paragraph. This sentence signals that we are about to get new examples. Retailers meticulously design store interiors to create a particular mood. Here is the first new example. It talks about how retailers use color in their store interiors. The goal is to create a particular mood. This shows that the environment where you shop is also part of this color strategy. The color of a button on a website can even affect conversion rates, with studies showing that certain colors encourage more clicks than others. This is a second example, moving from physical stores to the online world. It mentions the color of a button on a website. This small detail can affect conversion rates, which is a business term for getting a user to take a desired action, like making a purchase. This shows just how specific and powerful the application of color psychology can be. Ultimately, color is a powerful, nonverbal communication tool that helps brands establish their identity, connect with their target audience, and subtly guide consumer behavior from the moment of first impression to the final point of sale. This is the concluding sentence of the passage. It summarizes everything. It calls color a powerful, nonverbal communication tool. And what does this tool do? Three things. It helps brands establish their identity, connect with their target audience, and subtly guide consumer behavior. This final sentence reinforces the main topic of the entire passage. All right, let's tackle our first question. This question asks us to identify the main topic of the entire passage, so we need to think about the big picture. What is the main topic of the passage? This is a classic main idea question. It's asking what the entire passage is primarily about. The key phrase here is main topic. We need to find the option that best summarizes the whole text, not just one part of it. A good main topic will cover the ideas in all three paragraphs. Remember the first sentence we read? The use of color in marketing is a strategy to influence emotion and behavior. This is a strong clue. Let's evaluate option A together. The cultural differences in color perception. This option focuses on cultural differences. The passage does mention this in the first paragraph with the phrase cultural background and gives an example about Western cultures. However, this is just one detail, not the main topic of the entire passage. The text also talks about branding, store interiors, and websites, so this option is too narrow. It's a supporting detail, not the central theme. Therefore, this is incorrect. Now let's take a closer look at option B, how companies use color to influence consumers. This option suggests the passage is about how companies use color to influence consumers. Let's check. The first paragraph introduces this idea. The second paragraph gives examples with red, blue, and green. The third paragraph expands on this with store interiors and website buttons. This option perfectly summarizes the entire passage from start to finish. It captures the main purpose discussed throughout the text. This looks very promising. This is correct. Let's move on to option C, the most popular colors used in advertising. This option talks about the most popular colors. The passage mentions red, blue, and green as examples, but it never states that they are the most popular. It doesn't rank colors or provide statistics on their popularity. It only explains why certain colors are used in specific contexts. This option introduces information that isn't in the text, so this is incorrect. Next, we'll examine option D, the historical development of color psychology. This option suggests the passage is about the historical development of this field. Does the text talk about when color psychology started, who the key figures were, or how it evolved over time? No, it doesn't. The passage describes what color psychology is and how it is currently used in marketing. There is no historical information at all. Therefore, this option is incorrect. The correct answer is B, because the key expressions in the text directly match this option, while the other choices either provide incomplete information or clearly contradict the passage. Let's move on to our second question. This one is a vocabulary question, which asks for the meaning of a word as it is used in the passage. The word evoke in the passage is closest in meaning to. This question asks us to find the synonym for the word evoke in the context of the passage. Let's find the word in the text. It's in the first paragraph. Specific colors can evoke predictable feelings. To solve this, we can try replacing evoke with each of the answer choices and see which one makes the most sense in the sentence. The sentence is saying that colors cause or create feelings. Let's take a closer look at option A, prevent. Let's try it in the sentence. Specific colors can prevent predictable feelings. This means that colors stop feelings from happening. This is the opposite of what the passage is saying. The passage clearly states that colors create feelings, so this is incorrect. Let's evaluate option B and see how it fits justify. Let's try this one. Specific colors can justify predictable feelings. To justify means to give a good reason for something. Can a color give a reason for a feeling? It doesn't quite fit the meaning here. Colors don't justify feelings, they cause them. This word doesn't work in this context. Therefore, this is incorrect. Next, we'll examine option C, bring to mind. Let's substitute this phrase. Specific colors can bring to mind predictable feelings. This means that when you see a color, it makes you think of or feel a certain emotion. For example, red brings to mind a feeling of urgency. This fits the context of the sentence perfectly. It accurately describes the psychological process the passage is discussing. This is very likely our answer. This is correct. Here's option D. Let's break it down. Change. Let's try the last one. Specific colors can change predictable feelings. This would imply that you are already feeling something and the color alters that feeling. While a color might change a mood, the primary meaning in this sentence is about creating or generating a feeling in the first place, not altering an existing one. Bring to mind is a more precise fit for what the author is describing. So this is incorrect. The correct choice should be marked as C, because the context of the passage supports only this option. The other choices involve surface-level reading or misinterpretation. Great, let's proceed to the third question. This is an inference question, which means the answer is not stated directly in the text, but we can figure it out based on the information given. What can be inferred about a global company using color in its marketing? The key words here are inferred and global company. An inference is a logical conclusion based on evidence. A global company is one that operates in many different countries. The passage doesn't mention global companies, so we have to find clues that help us understand this situation. Let's look back at the first paragraph. It says that responses to color can be shaped by personal experience and cultural background. This is our biggest clue. Let's move on to option A. It can use the same color strategy in every country. This option says a global company can use the same color strategy everywhere. This directly contradicts the passage's statement that responses are shaped by cultural background. If culture affects how people see color, then the same strategy would not work in every country. For example, the meaning of red in a Western culture might be different somewhere else, so this is definitely incorrect. Here's option B. Let's break it down. It should focus only on using the color blue for trust. This option is very specific, suggesting a company should focus only on using the color blue. While the passage does link blue to trust, it doesn't say this is the only way to build trust, nor does it suggest this meaning is the same in every single culture worldwide. Making such a specific recommendation for all global companies is too extreme and is not supported by the text. Therefore, this is incorrect. Let's evaluate option C and see how it compares. It may need to adjust its color choices for different cultures. This option suggests a company may need to adjust its color choices for different cultures. This aligns perfectly with the clue we found in the first paragraph. Since color perception is shaped by cultural background, a company operating in different cultures would logically need to consider these differences and adapt its strategy. This is a reasonable and well-supported inference. This is correct. Now that we've reviewed the example, let's check option D and see if it matches. It will have more success using red than any other color. This option makes a strong claim that red guarantees more success than any other color. The passage mentions red in the context of urgency for clearance sales, but it never says it is the most successful color overall. Success depends on the company's goal. A bank using red might fail to build trust. This is an unsupported generalization, so this is incorrect. The correct answer to this question is C, since this option alone fully and clearly addresses what the question is asking, highlighting the importance of careful reading. All right, on to question number 4. This is a detail question that asks for a specific piece of information mentioned in the passage. According to the passage, why do financial institutions often use the color blue? The question is very direct. It asks why certain businesses, specifically financial institutions, use the color blue. The phrase, according to the passage, means the answer is stated directly in the text. We need to scan the passage for keywords like blue, financial, banks, or insurance. Let's look at the second paragraph. We find the sentence, blue is commonly linked to feelings of trust, security, and stability, making it a popular choice for banks, insurance companies, aiming to project reliability. The answer is right there. Now let's examine option A, to create a sense of urgency for customers. This option mentions creating a sense of urgency. According to the passage, which color is associated with urgency? Red, not blue. The text says red is used for clearance sales to create urgency. This option confuses the information about red with the question about blue, so this is incorrect. Let's evaluate option B and see how it fits to show a connection to nature and health. This option talks about a connection to nature and health. Let's check the passage. The text states that green signifies health, nature, and tranquility. Again, this option is confusing information about a different color, green, with the question about blue. This is incorrect. Here's option C. Let's break it down. To project an image of security and dependability. This option says the reason is to project an image of security and dependability. Let's go back to our key sentence in the passage. It says, blue is linked to feelings of trust, security, and stability, and is used to project reliability. The words security and dependability, which is very similar to reliability, are a perfect match for the information in the passage. This option directly answers the question based on the text. This is correct. Let's move on to option D, to stand out from their competitors' branding. This option suggests the reason is to stand out from competitors. While this is a general goal in marketing, the passage does not give this as the reason for using blue. In fact, since many banks use blue, it might actually make them look similar, not stand out. The passage specifically says the reason is to project reliability, not to be different. This answer is not supported by the text, so this is incorrect. Here, the correct option is C, which shows that once we understand the main idea of the text, identifying the correct answer becomes much more straightforward. And now for our final question. This is a purpose question, which asks why the author included specific information. Why does the author mention store interiors and website buttons in paragraph 3? This question asks for the reason or purpose behind mentioning store interiors and website buttons. To answer this, we need to understand the function of these details within the third paragraph. Let's look at the first sentence of that paragraph. The application of color psychology extends beyond branding and advertising. This is the topic sentence. Everything that follows should support or explain this idea. The mentions of stores and buttons come right after this sentence. Let's take a closer look at option A. To argue that color is most important in digital marketing. This option claims the author is arguing that color is most important in digital marketing. The passage mentions website buttons, but it also mentions physical store interiors. It doesn't compare their importance or say one is more important than the other. It presents them as two different areas where color psychology is applied. This is an exaggeration, so this is incorrect. Next, we'll examine option B, to provide additional examples of color psychology in practice. This option suggests the details are additional examples of color psychology being used. This makes perfect sense. The first two paragraphs talked about logos and branding. The third paragraph starts by saying the application extends beyond that. Then it gives the examples of store interiors and website buttons to show what else it extends to. They serve as evidence to support the paragraph's main point. This is a very strong candidate. This is correct. Let's move on to option C, to contrast physical retail with online shopping experiences. This option says the purpose is to contrast physical and online shopping. To contrast means to show differences. While one example is physical and one is online, the author's purpose is not to highlight their differences. Instead, the author is showing that the same principle, color psychology, is applied in both of these different areas. They are presented as similar applications of the main idea, not as a contrast. So this is incorrect. Here's option D. Let's break it down. To introduce a new theory about consumer behavior. This option suggests the author is introducing a new theory. The passage is explaining the application of an existing field, color psychology. The examples of store interiors and website buttons are not new theories. They are practical applications of the theory that has been discussed throughout the entire passage. Therefore, this is incorrect. The correct answer is B because the key expressions in the text directly match this option, while the other choices either provide incomplete information or clearly contradict the passage.